You're listening to the Interconnect Hub podcast, powered by DataGryd. DataGryd is a premier data center provider located in the iconic 60 Hudson Street building. To learn more, visit www.datagryd.com. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back to the Interconnect Hub. This is Doug Foresta. With me today, of course, is Tom Brown, the president and CEO of DataGryd. Also joining me today is Jeff August. He is the Chief Strategy Officer for UpStack. Tom, Jeff, welcome.
Thanks, Doug. Good to be back.
Hi.
Thanks so much. So, Jeff, I want to start with you. You have an interesting background. You've worked for some small companies like Facebook and Dropbox, maybe some names that people might know. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
So for years, I've been planning and then executing on plans to deploy internet infrastructure for some of the, I guess I'd say, the most successful names that have come out of Silicon Valley. So I've managed business arrangements with network service providers and data center vendors on behalf of Facebook and Square and Dropbox. And those are kind of the last three in order that I've worked at.
Thanks so much. So can you explain to our listeners what UpStack is? Give them an idea of what you do.
Basically, what we do at UpStack is the things that I have done on behalf of those brands that I was just mentioning. We've tried to systematize it, turn it into like sourcing as a service, right? You can come and come to our website and you pick a market that you would like to deploy co-location in, and we'll give you a sort of guided tour through setting up an RFQ, reaching out to as many vendors as possible, normalizing all the results. So it's really a platform for the procurement of co-location right now services. And we have designs on expanding what's offered on the platform, but for right now, it's co-location.
And Tom, if you could explain the connection between DataGryd and UpStack, why are we talking to Jeff today? Can you explain a little bit of that to our listeners?
Sure, Doug. It's all about messaging, and it's all about making sure that we're touching a broad audience. And with UpStack's platform, it does just that. We are a single asset data center company, albeit that we're at a very historical and iconic building at 60 Hudson Street. We still want to make sure that through this platform, we want to be recognized when folks are looking and taking a look and seeing what their actual needs are. And by formulating RFPs, it enables us to get matched up. So we're excited to be part of that platform.
Thank you, Tom. And Jeff, I want to return to you. Can you say a little bit about why edge computing is changing IT infrastructure and what you're seeing?
This is going to be a little bit of a winding answer. And I'm not here to tell you guys that, back in my day, we walked 3 miles uphill in the snow. But but I am here to tell you guys that the worst day that I ever had at Facebook, I could not technically call it a day because it was 36 hours long. That's how long I was in the office. And what we were doing at the time was there was, just to kind of set the stage, we had released our first ever purpose-built data center, and it was, a smashing success and was really helping us push the business forward. So we started to do another purpose-built data center, and we were looking in the southeast of the United States. We ended up putting it in North Carolina. My job at the time, I was trying to find network paths to connect to this middle of nowhere place, which is typical, that's where you build the purpose-built data centers when you're one of those big hyperscalers, especially back in like 2010 when this was going on or whenever it was. I'm dating myself now. But I was finding network paths into this building in the middle of nowhere. And then also we had an architecture that said you always have 2 points of egress from any data center. So we always knew everything's going to go to Ashburn from the southeast because everything in the world goes to Ashburn. Not really, that's hyperbole, but Ashburn is sort of the center of the internet, right? And then, so where's the secondary egress point? And we were working on doing something in Atlanta. Well, at the same time, I had a network engineer. Now, our team, just so everybody understands, is our team was 6 network engineers, their manager, and I supported them on the services side of the business and helped with the planning and procuring. So this was a total of like 7 people. So we have that going on, and then at the same time, we have a new deployment going on in Hong Kong. We're actually moving POPs because we got into a bad POP, which is not rare when you're a small company and you're starting to do all these deployments. Sometimes you have to kind of readjust. And so we have one network engineer who's flying to Hong Kong. We have all this stuff going on down in Atlanta where we're doing like an RFQ for the entire Atlanta market, also while looking through a bunch of different fiber paths to a bunch of different middle of nowhere places. And then we also had started to kick the tires on expanding the service and getting better performance down in South America. So I was doing some tire kicking on Brazil and on Argentina. Now, the height of absurdity of this terrible day that I'm talking about right now is that I was able, without leaving campus, I was able to sneak in a Maroon 5 concert because they played a concert in our loading dock at 1050 Page Mill. So there I was in my dirty, sweaty clothes that I'd been wearing for, more than a day. Although, because it was Facebook, we had toothbrushes and everything in every bathroom, and there were bathrooms with showers. So at least I had fresh breath and I was refreshed from a shower, and I'd taken a nap on a couch in a conference room. But I got to go in and see Adam Levine serenade all of us with "She Will Be Loved" from behind a chain link fence. It looked like they were singing from a prison set, but was really our loading dock. So you think about the heart of why that day was terrible is because I had so many different projects that I needed so many different bits of information about back at the same time. And so I'm trying to stay on top of people across multiple time zones, across the world. Sorry, wife and girls at home. I've got like all this stuff to do. That's exactly why I came to UpStack, because we helped solve that problem. The platform would allow Jeff back in 2010 or 2009 or whenever that was going on to go in and simply, search all of these different markets on my own and run the RFQs through our platform. And actually, I think that's the one thing that really attracted me to UpStack is that you think about it as it becomes like an indispensable utility. It's a tool that you can't live without because it saves you so much time and helps you push things forward. And it's also a tool that happens to address a problem that I really, really know, and I lived for years at Yahoo, at Facebook, at Square, and at Dropbox. So really, that's a long-winded way of saying I'm here because my worst day of all time at Facebook included a Maroon 5 concert in the loading dock.
Jeff, I can appreciate that, and that's why DataGryd has adapted. We started out in 2011, and it was a wholesale model, but we have seen a change in the edge computing where folks are taking smaller increments of space, but power requirements are much larger. So now with our newly constructed 1 megawatt data hall, we can accommodate smaller footprints but dense power applications. So I can see how this is continuing to evolve, and we always talk about remember when and can you imagine. So you'll never forget that day at Facebook. So I certainly appreciate that. And for what you did, the industry is changing and adapting.
Yes, and that's actually more to the question that I totally left out the part about what was changing. It's like we've been building these edge nodes since I was at Yahoo in 2007, and what we were doing in those edge nodes originally was just sort of replacing content delivery networks in places where it made sense to replace them, where we could do it for cheaper. We would still pay them for the hard spots, and we would go to the easy spots. And at the time, back then, it was really just about caching. You're like caching a bunch of files at the edge closer to the person who wanted to access those files. And it just makes sense that over time, when you say it even like that in a very straightforward, logical way, caching files that people need access to closer to the users, that that has much bigger and broader applications than just serving Yahoo news stories, right? And as the things that people expect to do over the internet have changed and grown, like for instance, software as a service now, right? Like nobody's using, not nobody, but there's not a lot of people who are deploying huge computer systems in a closet on their premise anymore, right? They live in their software solutions live in their own cloud, whether that's Dropbox or Box or Workday or Salesforce. And so they need connectivity to those things. And we have distributed workforces too, right? On top of that, now we have people who, like, I'm talking to you guys live from my house in California, and I work for a company headquartered in New York, right? So all of those things just naturally combine to make the edge grow as it was from day one. And now as people are finding more and more things to do at that edge, that means that, like you're pointing out, Tom, we need more power, and we're trying to, move it into a much more smaller space. So It's interesting times.
And Doug, as we talk about on our previous podcast, right, Northern Virginia is the center of the internet. However, New York complements that. And as we see emerging technologies and as Jeff and his team see these new inquiries, it's continuing to reshape the industry. And aggregation is key, and that's where DataGryd fits in, and we'll adapt with that change. So working with an UpStack gives us guidance on how we can market this valuable asset that we have.
Well, thank you so much. Well said, Jeff. An interesting story that illustrates an important point. Thank you so much, Tom. Of course, thank you for coming on. And Jeff, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. It was an awesome conversation. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You've been listening to the Interconnect Hub podcast powered by DataGryd. DataGryd is a premier data center provider located in the iconic 60 Hudson Street building. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you consume your audio. To learn more about DataGryd and the services they provide, visit www.datagryd.com. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll be back soon with a new episode.